Hi, Scott from Digital Fish with some rock fishing tips on what to do when the fishing is slow. We've all had one of those days where the fishing is slow, and it could be in a new spot that you're trying to fish that you think, yeah, it looks really good, or it could be a spot you fished many times before, but for some reason the fish don't seem to be biting. They might be there and they're not biting, or they just may not be there. So tip number one, work the berley. Make sure your berley is doing a good job of dispersing with juices and flavours going all through the water and going as far as it can, not just sitting there at your feet. That's not very helpful. Also, cast out some chunks, cut up some chunks of bait, and also throw those out in a wide area next to where you're fishing as well. Really important, don't cast your line 100 metres away if your berley is right in front of you. That's where the fish are going to be congregating. Tip number two, don't leave your rod sitting in the holder waiting for the rod to go off. Sometimes fish will bite very lightly, and even big snapper and big trevally can just nibble at the bait or mouth the bait and you don't feel anything. So instead of waiting for a bite, pick the rod up, fish actively, see if you can feel any bites at all. If you're losing bait, that's a good sign, okay? It's not a bad sign. Tip number three, sometimes it's really worth using a lighter leader, especially on bright, calm, sunny days like today. If the fish can see your leader and they're suspicious, then they won't bite. But if you change your leader down to something that's very light, then that may help trick the fish or fool the fish into taking a bite. Tip number four, use more than one line. Obviously fish the berley at your feet, but it may be worth casting another line in a different direction, much further out. Or you could set up a live bait, especially if you've got snapper who you're catching in the morning and then the bite goes off. You may find that other fish like kahawai, kingfish and john dory will still come in close and shallow, and so having a live bait set up could catch one of those species. Tip number five, if you're out there fishing and you don't seem to be getting many bites, try changing your bait. Try and get something natural from where you're actually fishing to use for bait. It could be a rock crab, it could be some mussels, it could be a fresh piper or piece of fresh jack mackerel, or maybe even kahawai. Using some natural bait from the area you're fishing can sometimes be the switch that helps you to catch the fish that are sitting there. Tip number six, do a bit of reconnaissance. If you can, if there's a place you can get to that's higher up, maybe up a steep hill behind you or a higher rock ledge, with polarized sunglasses looking down into the water, sometimes you can see features that may hold fish. It could be a deeper area or gut, or it could be some kelp beds, it could be just something that you're missing of where you're fishing right now that may actually hold more fish, or even just one fish for you to take home for dinner. So having a bit of a scout around, and particularly getting up high and looking down, you may even see a large kingfish cruising by, which tells you there's fish around. Tip number seven, take a handful of bait and go for a bit of a walk. Walk along the rocks, along the shoreline, and just have a few different casts in some different areas and see if there's fish somewhere else. You may not need to actually pick up camp and then go somewhere else and set it up again. Just go for a bit of a walk and just have a few casts. Sometimes you'll pick up a fish, or you may be getting more bites and you think, hey, this is where the fish are actually holding. And if you find that spot, then you can pick up camp and change over to where the fish are. Tip number eight, check out the bite time. Often you'll find that you've been fishing, it's slow and the bite time hasn't actually occurred. But if you know when it is and you do your scouting around, find what you think is your best location, work the berley and concentrate all your fishing effort during that time, then often you can pull one or two fish out and it kind of saves the day. So knowing the bite time can really be helpful. So there's my tips on what to do if the fishing is slow. I've used them and they've saved me on some occasions. They don't work all the time, but sometimes they're worth trying, and it means the difference between coming home with nothing and coming home with a feed. Good luck.